Hello. Today I'm going to be talking about something that I find really interesting, which is color in film. So I've got a big list here of all the different possible meanings for each color. I'm going to be going through them each more in detail, so I'm not going to say them all right now. But it's important to note how every color can have a lot of different meanings depending on the context of the film. Okay, jumping in here, we're going to be talking about the color red. I've got four different movies here that utilize the color red to communicate different things. So down here in Blue Velvet, that's Dorothy's apartment. The color red is used to signify that there's danger nearby. There's a scene of the bad guys come around the corner following a shot of a fire extinguisher. Frank Booth's apartment and this apartment are both have red walls and red furniture and pillows. In Moonlight down here, Chiron's mom wears a red shirt when she's dangerous, as well as his bully is always wearing a red shirt. When someone's wearing red in Moonlight, that person is dangerous to Chiron. In Fire of Love, the color red is associated with passion, excitement, and lava. For the Craft couple, the color red is really intriguing and draws them in. They love red volcanoes. That's their favorite kind. Um, while on the other hand, gray volcanoes are scary and dangerous to them. So while watching this movie, the color red takes on a new meaning that maybe it didn't have before. And then lastly, in Licorice Pizza, Alana puts on a red dress when she finally comes to term with her sexuality and it finally embraces the uncomfortable pleasure that she gets from being desired by Gary. The color blue also has a couple of different meanings. In Blue Velvet, David Lynch uses a really traditional take on blue. He dresses Dorothy in a blue robe to signify her isolation and her sadness, to show that she's unhappy in her circumstances. When she sings her song Blue Velvet, she's singing, or she's it's a cry for connection. It's really a cry for help, to communicate how sad she is. In a more non-traditional take on the color blue is the movie Moonlight. In Moonlight, the color blue really represents confidence and surety of yourself, specifically your sexuality. Chiron feels really supported by Juan, who uncoincidentally has the nickname Blue. They float together in the deep blue ocean, and Chiron feels loved and supported. He feels like this relationship with Juan gives him a good foundation for being sure of himself on his own. This blue moonlight and the blue ocean come back in this scene where Chiron has his first sexual experience with Kevin. He's allowed here to be vulnerable, which is depicted by the blue. He's also wearing a shirt that has yellow and blue squares on it. I'll talk about yellow a little bit more later, but yellow signifies fear. So this shirt tells us that he's feeling really vulnerable, but he also feels like it's a safe space to be in that. In the final scene of the movie, Kevin changes out of his white work uniform. He's seen wearing white most of the movie into this blue shirt. And this communicates to Chiron that Kevin is secure of himself. Despite his life maybe not going the way that he wanted it to, he still knows who he is. He knows his sexuality. He knows his place in the world. And he communicates that by wearing this blue shirt. And then lastly, in Phantom Thread up there, Reynolds is really cold and analytical and removed, which is shown by him always wearing blue. His hair is so gray, it's almost blue. He's always seen in dark blue, like contrasting light, which contrasts how Alma has red hair, is wearing warm colored clothes. She's nurturing, she's honest, she's vulnerable. She's always bathed in a warm light. So there are two big takes that I've seen on the color yellow. One is like the inside out joy, desire, excitement. And then the other is yellow representing fear and apprehension. And I think these three movies capture that really well. And it shows how the meaning of yellow really depends on the context of the situation. So in Her, up here, Theodore wears a yellow shirt to his first date following the separation from his wife. This yellow shows that he's really apprehensive and he's has this fear of rejection. but he's also feeling that joy of being desired again and the excitement that comes with a first date. In Moonlight, a similar feeling is shown. This is Chiron hugging Kevin in the diner. Chiron is really scared to face his feelings, but he's drawn in by those temptations of being seen and loved and touched again. He also, like I talked about before, has that shirt with the blue and yellow on it, which shows his mixed feelings. On the far left over there, I have the apartment of the Torrance family in The Shining. Um, this apartment has really brightly colored yellow wallpaper on the walls and on the door frames. So at first, this seems like, the joy of family and togetherness. But then as the movie progresses, it takes on a more sinister look, and the color yellow invokes fear and apprehension and shows how uncomfortable it is for these people to be around each other. Next, I'll be talking about how filmmakers use the color green to remind us of this cycle of life and death and our mortality. Over here is in 2001: A Space Odyssey. The astronaut is dying in his room, and he's covered in green blankets and a green bed with green decor. And this is really depicting the nature of his mortality. I really feel like Stanley Kubrick set this precedent that green is not only life, it is also death. It's and everything in between. In Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, over here, Clementine gives us a lot of insight into her mindset and her inner workings with the color of her hair. So she has green hair in the beginning / end of the story, which symbolizes the birth and the subsequent death of their relationship. This green depicts the unchangeable nature of their love. We know here from the beginning and in the end that it's not going to work out. And like all living things, this relationship will be born and it will die, and the cycle doesn't ever really end. Okay, down here in Midsummer, Ari Aster really brilliantly uses the color green to change our feelings about horror. Typically, horror movies are dark and cast in shadows, but this movie happens all in the daylight on a beautiful, lush green background. He uses these natural greens to present a facade of safety and comfort, which causes Danny to second guess her own apprehension because she feels like she must be safe in such a lush and green and living atmosphere. And as the viewer, we kind of feel the same way. Even though she knows and we know that eventually this green will give way to the cycle of life and death and it will turn into something really terrible, it feels kind of safe in the moment, and it's a pleasant watch, kind of. And then lastly, we have Paddleton here. Michael is wearing this green sweatshirt when he tells Andy that he knows that he's going to die. And to his best friend, Andy, this green, all that he sees is the life that Michael has left. But because Michael knows the reality of his situation, all that he sees is this looming death. Again, these movies give us context into the colors and how they symbolize different things. Okay, and then lastly, we have white. I found this really interesting, especially after reading the chapter in Chromophobia about the color white. I think that Stanley Kubrick does a really good job at challenging our ideas of color theory and the color of white, which in the textbook, he kind of did the same thing. In A Clockwork Orange up here, Kubrick uses white, which we're used to being like sterility, innocence, things like that. That color is worn by men who we know from the first scene are evil and up to no good. And it really challenges our idea of this innocent white color. Moonlight uses white in a much more traditional way. Up there in the left corner, Juan is usually seen wearing a white shirt, which shows how Chiron feels safe with him. He knows this is a safe place for him. And then Chiron, when he's little, is always wearing a white shirt, which shows that he's naive, he's innocent, and he's vulnerable. She's not in this scene, but Teresa is also usually wearing white because she is a safe place for little as well. I also want to mention that in this scene, and subsequent scenes. Teresa and Juan's house is painted white, but they're in the process of painting it pink. And throughout the movie, they paint more and more walls pink. So you can see that it's only painted like halfway up the wall. And this symbolizes that from the get go, Little sees them, this is a safe place for him to go. But then as time goes on and as he gets older and develops a relationship with them, this becomes a place of love as well. He feels loved and supported here, as well as just that baseline safety. And then lastly, in Phantom Thread, the color white is repeatedly used to show the flawless perfection of the Woodcock work. This wedding dress from the last few scenes of the movie is his masterpiece. It's handcrafted, like painstakingly perfect. And I feel like this kind of shows Woodcock's stiff and rigid way of living. And Alma really comes in and shakes things up. She adds color. She brings in a breath of life that his work did not have before. So, in conclusion, filmmakers can use color to communicate a lot of different things, and it doesn't have to be just one color either. For example, in Moonlight, at the very beginning, Juan wears a really multicolored, multi-patterned shirt, which tells us that Little doesn't know how to feel about him yet. In Boogie Nights, all the different characters wear vibrant colored clothes depending on who they are, and we can use that to give us a little bit of insight into what's going on in their mind. As well as in Eternal Sunshine, Clementine always has different colored hair, which tells you the stage of their relationship, gives you a little bit of context into the timing of things, and gives you some insight into what she's feeling. A Clockwork Orange uses crazy vibrant colors and multicolors to create a futuristic yet old looking environment and atmosphere that is almost fantasy and doesn't feel quite real. A Phantom Thread uses these colorful balloons to contrast the dark perfection and sterility of this couple and shows them being vulnerable and losing themselves. Overall, learning about color theory has given me a lot of insight into how filmmakers are choosing to dress their sets and to dress their characters, what film style and filters to use. And it's been really valuable for me in my film watching experience. So thank you very much.